Hey guys, Mr. Martin with a video covering the basic array exercises assignment that we have in class. If you quickly want to go through this just to see the answers, for number one, the answer is A. For number two, the answer is also A. And for number three, the answer is C. So again, A, C. If you want to keep watching for an explanation of each question, here we go. So for number one, we have a void method called change it that takes an array at, I'm sorry, you can't see that. We have a void method called change it that has an integer array as its first parameter, an integer for index as the second parameter, and an integer called new value for the third parameter. So it seems as if what the method is going to do is take in an integer array, choose an index value, and update that index value to be what will update the value at that position to be whatever this new value is. And that's kind of what happens inside the method. So whatever index position we have, you're gonna take that value and add to it the new value and replace that value with that. So the answer is A, but we can go through and see why the answer is A. So there's no difference in the first line of code for A through E. Each of these has an integer array called myArray that has, in the case of A, B, and C, the array has 4 elements, and for D and E, the array has 5 elements. The key here is that we want the array to update the value of the second element to 5. So remember, arrays are 0 indexed. So the first 0 has an index of 0, the 5 has an index of 1, the second 0 has an index of 2, and the last 0 has an index of 3. So what we should be looking for is something that's going to change the second thing, which again is going to be a 1 to 5. The reason that B, C, D, and E don't, the reason that A, B, C, D, and E all could possibly work initially is that when you start out with an array, if you don't put values in it, the array is going to default to the default value for that data type. So for integers, if you create an integer array, as we did here, what happens initially is that the array is filled with just 4 zeros because all you said was create an array called myArray and make it have 4 elements. What this next line does is refers back to myArray, updates the first position to 5. Now it's not updating the first position to 5, it's taking the value that is in the array, adding the new value, and storing that back. So the only reason that this actually works is that everything has a 0 when you first start out. If we had come along and said my array equals, and we had done 2, 3, 6, and 7, the value that would be stored in if this second line change it had executed, what would happen is that the new value in position 1 would be 3 plus 5, which is 8, and then you replace that. Because that's what this line of code is telling you to do. It's not saying put 5 in array position 1. It's saying take the value that's in array position 1, add 5 to it, and then replace that value with update that array position with that value. So again, the only reason it works is that when you create a new array without putting anything in, everything defaults to 0. Now, the reason D and E can't work is that the array contains 5 elements and our array clearly contains 4. So immediately D and E can't work, and array position 5 just doesn't exist for this myArray because it only contains 4 elements, and we would get an out of bounds exception for C. And then when we look for B, the answer that could most closely resemble the correct answer is that they want you to think, because this is the second position, that you should refer to 2. But again, because arrays are 0 indexed, this should be a 1 to refer to the second position. For number 2, we have another method that returns an array. Let's see what the method does. So the method name is add num. So let's see, we take in an integer array. You have a first position, an int first, int second, and int num. And inside the method, we create a new array that has the same length as the array parameter. And then new array, according to whatever this number is going to be the array, the value that's in the same position plus whatever num is right here. So what we're trying to do is figure out which of the following segments would give us 0, 0, 13, 0, 9, 0, 0. So because we see all of these zeros, this is a good indicator that the initial call to the array should only reference how many elements are in the array. So it's going to be something like array equal, like int array equals this thing. And so we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zeros. And if we put the index below these, we get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what we're looking for is a call that would update the third value and the fifth value by assuming it has to add the same number, because that's what happens here. You're adding the same number in both instances. So over here, so you're going to take array, like, again, A is the correct answer. So if we have this method, if we took array 1 and call this method, what would happen is it would take array 1, it's going to then say, it's going to take this array position 2, which is the third value in the array, add 5 to it. So that's going to be 8 plus 5, which is 13. And then it's going to do the fifth value in the array, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, according to this position, and also add 5 to it. So that's going to give us 13 right here and 9 right here. And the reason these other values are zeros is that the method doesn't copy the other values of the array. And so when this new array is created, it's going to put, again, default to zeros in every position, and these next 2 lines take the values that were in the previous array and add 5 to them. So that's going to make A, again, the correct answer. Now, the reason that B doesn't work is because if you created this, we would have array position 2 is going to be 0, 1, 2, but when you add 5 to it, you would get 18. And if you take 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you add 5 to this, you would get 14. This is the answer that we want after the method is executed. So this is taking the answer and then changing it more. So B can't work. For C, there's a similar thing where you know that 8 and 4 are respectively the third and fifth, but remember, arrays are 0 indexed, so 3 and 5, while those are the array positions you want, since it's 0 indexed, you always have to do 1 less than the position, so C doesn't work. D doesn't work because if you think this is the second position, that's going to make you think that 8 is what you should choose, 8 and 4. So it's doing that same faulty logic, but in the opposite direction. So D won't work. And similar for E. So again, by process of elimination, we get to A, but the thing that we have to remember most is that arrays are 0 index, meaning the first position starts at 0 and you go until you get to 1 less than the size of the array. Again, because this array contains 7 elements, if it's 0 indexed, the final index value is 6. And so last is number 3, where we have, let's see, we have public static get value. So you're going to, again, have an integer array as a parameter, and then you have J and int K, and you're going to return data J plus data K. So A, B, C, D, and E. So D and E automatically can't work because both of these would result in syntax errors. You can't make an integer store 5 different values. You have to declare an array or some sort of collection. So D and E aren't even array. Like this first line doesn't work. So then when we look at A, if you were to pass if you were to pass the array in letter A as a parameter, you would get data value 1 plus 2, that's going to be 30 plus 20, which is 50. So that just doesn't work because we're trying to get 70. And then for B, you have the same, the array name is the same, but if we pass this, you're going to have array position 1 plus array position 2, which is going to be 30 plus 20 again, which is 50. So B doesn't work. And so then for C, we would have pass this array and then add position 1 and position 2, and we would get 40 plus 30, which is 70. Now, the only difference between C and E is that E doesn't present an array. If we had this box here for making this an array, then this would also work. We would have 40 plus 30, which is 70. So C and E could work if E actually contained an array, but it doesn't. So a quick recap, arrays have, they are zero indexed. When you create an array without first putting in values, everything gets a placeholder value of 0. And the only way those zeros are taken out is if you update the array. So again, if we go one more time back to example number 2, when we create this array, new array, we're creating an array that has the same length as the previous array, but it has zeros in every position. And the only things that aren't zeros are the array positions that correspond to whatever numbers you put in for first and second. And so that again is why A is the correct answer. It won't copy the 5, 2, 8, 6, 4, 3, and 9. In this case, it's only going to take the value that's in 2 and the value that's in position 4 and add 5 to those. And again, since both of those are zeros, it's going to just do 0 plus 5 and overwrite that. It's going to do 8, it's going to do 8 plus 5, which is 13, and overwrite that 0 with that 13, and 4 plus 5, which is 9, and overwrite that 0 with a 9. All right, so hopefully this was helpful. If not, talk to me in class.